The chair lays out House Bill 1289 and recognizes Representative Campos to explain her bill. Representative Campos, I understand you intend to have changes to this bill. You may explain any changes that the substitute will make, and the substitute language will be distributed after the hearing.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good morning, Vice Chair and my fellow committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 1289 relating to establishing a training program for persons investigating suspected child abuse or neglect. During the interim, my office received many calls from constituents who were named as alleged abusers, and the investigation process turned in to be their worst nightmare when they thought everything would be cleared up once the department reviewed their situation. These families were in fear of the department, and when I reviewed these cases with my staff, there were major inconsistencies in how cases were handled compared to the policy training, which can at best be contributed to poor retention. A DFPS Administrative Review of Investigations Findings report from 2020 indicates that when parents requested an administrative review, roughly 50% of cases were overturned, resulting in case depositions being changed due to poor investigative work. While an administrative review is separate from the legal case, the data gives the legislature direct insight at how inadequately trained many of these investigators are when directly handling cases. HB 1289 seeks to codify an investigative program. The program will include comprehensive understanding of abuse and neglect definitions, the option of an abbreviated case or administrative closure, in which turn will help investigators triage cases and manage their caseloads better, required notices to alleged perpetrator, rights provided by the Fourth Amendment, proper investigation protocols and techniques, including how to properly photograph alleged physical markings, identify protective capabilities of children 13 years and older, and other vital knowledge to provide an accurate disposition on the case. An investigator and the investigation supervisor cannot be assigned to report cases until they have successfully completed the program and passed an examination. The reason that I bring this bill to us today is because I did a lot of work during the interim, and it was a bit disappointing to see what some of the caseworkers and investigators were going through. And I feel like we just need to give them a little bit more support to make things better for our children. And I will share one case that really touched me during the interim. There was a woman who, she was a grandma. She had joint custody of her grandson because her daughter was diagnosed schizophrenic, and that was the purpose of her getting joint custody. Mom had an episode. CPS was called. The child was removed. The child was 10 years old and he was autistic. CPS removed him, put him in a group home for 6 months, and would not release him back to grandma. It took me to get involved to call the commissioner at the time. It turned out that, the caseworkers, there was 10 caseworkers on this one case. And that's just one case that I worked on. There was another case where a mom called because she thought that her daughter was there was issues with an uncle that had come over. And she called CPS because she wanted to make sure that her daughter was okay and there wasn't a perpetrator. One thing led to another. CPS pretty much turned on her, took her girls away, gave them with her mother. But still, after meeting with caseworkers and investigators, I just saw, that they are lacking a lot of training. And so this is the whole purpose of my bill. And I could go on and on with different cases that I worked on. So with that, I reserve the right to close. And if anyone has any questions, I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Oh, you're welcome. Members, are there any questions for Representative Campos? Representative Noble?
Thank you for bringing this bill, but I'm going to ask, this is pretty extensive, the requirements you've put in. Are these duplicative? Because I know there's already requirements in
Right.
code for our CPS investigations. Are you deleting other ones and putting these in? Or are you adding to the list of things that they need to be trained on?
I'm adding, yes, yes.
But so these are not, all of these are not already in code, or are they somewhere else in code?
A lot of them are in code, but not, a lot of them are. But there are some new ones that I've put in.
So why didn't you just add the new ones and leave the others out? I'm just trying to focus in on what's different about the list you have here as opposed to what they're already doing. Do you have any idea about that?
Yeah, I mean, I can go through that with you. Let me just take a look at the bill.
Or we can do it at another time.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Members, are there any other questions? We will begin public testimony. At this time, the chair calls Andrew Brown, Associate Vice President of Policy with the Texas Public Foundation. Thank you for being here today. We show you registered as Andrew Brown, and you're testifying on behalf of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, and you're testifying for House Bill 1289. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Begin your testimony.
Good morning, Vice Chair Rose, members of the committee. Andrew Brown, Texas Public Policy Foundation, in support of House Bill 1289. Over the last several sessions, the legislature has passed significant reforms intended to solve ongoing problems at the Department of Family and Protective Services and transform the Texas child welfare system. Some of this work is bearing fruit, and that's encouraging. But in my conversations with many of you, as well as other stakeholders, one word keeps coming up again and again as a major root cause of this frustration, and that word is implementation. For example, we know that Vice Chair Rose passes only the best bills, and she can pass every single excellent bill that she wants to, but it's all for naught if those policies never actually make it into practice. House Bill 1289 is intended to help address this implementation gap in child protective investigations by requiring the Department of Family and Protective Services to develop an in-depth training program that every CPS investigator and supervisor will be required to complete. This training program includes critically important areas that have been the subject of recent reforms, including the legal definitions of abuse and neglect, investigative standards, and my personal favorite, the constitutional rights of families. During my career, I've had the privilege of helping to reunite families who were wrongfully separated by a CPS investigation. Although each of these cases was unique, they all shared a common thread. In each one, the lead investigator on the case made major mistakes during the investigation that were rooted in a lack of understanding of the basic laws, policies, and procedures governing the conduct of that investigation. I say this not to cast aspersions on all investigators, but to point out that many of the problems that make it to your desks are the result of a lack of consistency across the state. House Bill 1289 will help provide consistency in the training received by CPS investigators and raise the bar for quality casework by setting high expectations for knowledge and professionalism. 1289 is not a silver bullet that will solve all of the problems facing our child welfare systems. However, I believe it will go a long way in improving the conduct of investigations and ensuring that the reforms enacted by the legislature are well implemented for the benefit of all Texas families. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions for the witness? Thank you, Mr. Brown. At this time, there are no other witnesses signed up to testify. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify on, for, or against House Bill 1289? Seeing none, public testimony is closed, and the chair recognizes Representative Campos to close on House Bill 1289.
House Bill 1289 will resolve the lack of transparency in alleged abuse investigations, which has otherwise created a serious distrust of the children welfare and disorganization and consistency within the state child abuse investigations. It will streamline in investigative training expectations and allow the parties involved to an investigation to have clear understanding of the investigation and family rights before an unnecessary parent-child suit is brought to an overbroad court system. With that, I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you, and I close.
All right, there's no objection. House Bill 1289 will be left pending. Is there any objection? The chair hears none, and House Bill 1289 is left pending without objection.